So, good day, everyone. Welcome to this event by ENO Philippines and Miss Kathleen Baraan, Environmental Appreciation Through Nature Journaling. Looking at the chat here, we have plenty of audience from all over the world. We have participants from Finland, India, Georgia, Albania, um, and of course, from the Philippines. All right, so please allow me to introduce the artist or the speaker for this workshop. So Miss Kathleen Baraan, having graduated with a degree in biology and currently in pursuit of a master's degree in conservation and restoration ecology uh, in UP Baguio, Kathleen has gracefully entwined her love for the natural world and her artistic talent into a unique advocacy. As a freelance artist and art educator, she employs art as a powerful tool to shed light on the endemic and endangered species of the Philippines. Kathleen's dedication extends beyond the studio. She has collaborated with organizations like Education Explorations and volunteered with the Haribon Foundation and several other organizations with the same advocacy. Believing in the power of visual arts to raise awareness, she advocates for the promotion of Philippine biodiversity while empowering individuals to speak for nature through their passions. Through her works, Kathleen aspires to captivate the interest of the layman by mainstreaming knowledge about Philippine diversity. So everyone, let us all welcome Miss Kathleen Coches Dorothy Baraan.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Hello, everyone. Let me just spotlight myself as well. Hello. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Chelsea, from ENO Philippines. So Miss Chelsea is, just for context, is my colleague in the MS Care program in UP Baguio, and she has invited me to do an art workshop for ENO Philippines, which is one of the best things we came up with. And I think it's just a beautiful opportunity for us to get interested with science and the natural world through arts. And so we about myself, I'm pretty sure you've heard an introduction about a little about me, but the goal for today's workshop is not really to get or delve into the technical things of science, but rather introduce nature journaling as a powerful tool to spark your curiosity and observation in the natural world. So I hope that's the goal of today's workshop, and I hope that we'll be able to achieve that through simple exercises. And before we begin, I'll just go ahead and remove my spotlight so that you guys can all see. There we go. So this is my desk. It's a messy desk. Let me know if you can see my desk clearly, if that's spotlighted on your end. Can I get a thumbs up or at least okay from the chat, just to make sure that we're all clear? This is all good. Okay, I see a thumbs up. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. So for today's workshop, we are going to be talking about nature journaling. And for us to just get a quick survey, I guess, of or feel of the crowd, does anybody know what nature journal is? And if you do nature journal, and if you know what nature journal is, can you give a heart react? Ooh. Can you do the heart react? But if not, you can also, okay, there we go. I see some hearts. Okay, a couple of hearts. And then just a thumbs up if you are not familiar with nature journaling, but you've heard about it. So if you're familiar with the term nature journaling, but you haven't really, explored into that. So, okay, I see some thumbs up as well. See some hearts. Thank you so much, you guys. Okay. And also I wanted to say hello everybody too. From all across the globe. I really appreciate you guys. And if you can't stay throughout, then that's okay. We'll have a nature, what do you call this? Recording afterwards. All right, so nature journaling. We'll just begin with the concept of nature journaling. But before we begin, we'll start with a simple exercise. So yes, we're gonna delve already into the drawing sketching workshop. So we're gonna do an activity called blind contour. So if you're not familiar with blind contour, it's basically drawing without seeing what you are drawing. So what you might be asking what I'm referring to. So I will have this simple garlic, which is almost decaying. Um, I have this simple garlic here, and I'm gonna start doing a blind contour with that. I'm not sure if I can zoom in. There we go. We can zoom in. Awesome. That's amazing. Okay. All right. So I have a simple garlic, and what I want you to do is prepare a scratch paper. It doesn't have to be a watercolor paper. Prepare a scratch paper, and then prepare a pen. It doesn't have to be a fancy pen, just a regular pen, writing pen, or a pencil, if you may. And what I want you to do is to draw this garlic without looking at it. So how do we do that? First, we have what we call for this exercise a 2, 1, and 30 process. What do we mean? So 2 minutes, 1 minute, and 30 seconds. So for the first exercise, we'll observe this garlic first for 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes for that. And then after that, I'll remove this in the screen and then just draw it from memory. Okay. For the next exercise, we're going to be looking at it for 1 minute, and then we'll draw it again. And then we're going to look at it for 30 seconds and at the same time draw it for 30 seconds. So this is just like a fun, exercise. And no, we are not expecting a perfect piece because this is a blind contour to begin with. Okay, so let's start. And I will give you 2 minutes to just to look at this garlic, unfocused garlic. There we go. Let's wait for that to be focused. I am so sorry. There we go. Okay, look at this garlic for 2 minutes starting now. Okay, so I'll give you 2 minutes. And when you're looking at the garlic, try to think about, the shapes. Maybe where are the curves? Where does the line end? Just try to notice the details of that, And no, do not screenshot. I do not want you taking a screenshot. You can also check out the grooves. Where does it end? Does it have spikes? So those kinds of things. I'm sorry, the focuses are bouncing up and down. Okay. Right. Okay. Then maybe you can also ask yourself, if we look closely, do you see some lines in there? There we go. Do you see like patterns? What is the shape? Where do the lines go? And then what do you think is this crack right here? What does it imply? So you don't necessarily have to think much about it, but just try to memorize what you have in mind. Okay. Maybe that should be enough. I know it's not your 2 minutes. But I think we can remove it in a few seconds. And then we'll try to, draw it from memory. And I'm not going to be cheating, I promise. I will put this aside. And then I am going to hide it where I cannot see it. So just follow along with me, okay? Also, while we're waiting for you to memorize that image, are you guys able to turn on your videos? I think you can. Feel free to do that if you want to turn on your videos, share your processes, because I might need to ask as well others later on. Okay, I think that should be enough time. Let's remove this in 3, 2, 1, and then let's try to draw it. Okay, I am going to be drawing it from memory, and the garlic is behind my back, so oh my lord. So I remember it having this groove. I remember having it that, and then there were like grooves here that's kind of like, indented, and then there's also, I remember them having spikes. That's for sure. And then this last one having sort of, okay. All right. Time's up. And then let's turn on our videos for those who can, and then share your works. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be a little challenging for others, so that's okay. Right. So I'm pretty much done. If you are done as well, that's perfect. We'll be moving on to the next exercise, which is just staring at, maybe we'll skip the 1 minute process and just move on to the 30-second challenge, if that's okay with you guys. Okay, let's see, I think we're all good. So let's do the 30-second challenge. So what we will do here is we will look at this. Well, you guys will look at this, and then as much as possible, do not look at what you're drawing. Now, I know I might be a little cheating, but I promise I'll just do this and cover it with my hand. And I'm not going to look at my screen because my screen is showing my work. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not showing my work. So I'm going to have that here. Focused. There we go. Then I'm going to do that. Okay. All right. So we got 30 seconds and we will begin now. I promise I'm not looking. Just look at the garlic and just try to copy it and do not break the line. This is like continuous line drawing and try to remember the grooves. Okay. Simple as that. So I'm done. Okay. This is relatively easy actually, but line contour is a fun exercise for you to be able to let loose and kind of like diffuse, I guess, the stress that you have in mind. So you can do it with other subjects as well before you begin painting. So I'm curious to know, can we see everybody's work? Can you guys turn on your cameras and show your works at least? And also there's been a glitch earlier, so we're really sorry about that. Everyone's apparently one name. Ooh, interesting. Thank you, Joanna. That's cool. All right. Awesome. That is so nice. Okay, I'm seeing, I cannot see your names. I'm so sorry, but because of the glitch, but I definitely can see your work. Oh, thank you so much. I can see those works. That is lovely. Isn't it cute? Okay. The others turning on their cams. Awesome. Wow, you've got a kid over here. Yay. Awesome. Hello. Oh, that is cute. You guys did an amazing job. Wow. Thank you so much, Ethel. Okay, I can see you for others. All right. Beautiful. Awesome. You guys did an amazing job. I think I can exit now as an educator. All right. So wonderful. The next exercise we're going to be doing is positive and negative painting. So I want you to create just small boxes, maybe 1.5 inch in size, so squares like that. And then I want you to focus on where is my props? The Rafflesia here. There we go. I'm gonna zoom in to see so that you guys can see. Okay, so this is a Rafflesia. I'm not entirely sure what the species is, but it's one of the most beautiful plants here in the flowers in the Philippines. And the Philippines is actually the center for the diversity of Rafflesia species. So we have a lot of species, but we don't have the plentiest, there we go, in terms of quantity. So when we talk about positive space, we're actually talking about the subject itself. We're going to draw this Rafflesia. So I'm going to give you 1 minute for that. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? And then when we talk about negative space, here you can use your colors here. So you can use your crayons. And when we say negative space, you're actually drawing the space around the subject. So it's like outlining the subject first, but later on, oops, there we go. Later on, coloring the space behind it. And what this does is it trains your mind to actually see things when you're outside. So it's a good training to actually capture everything. So let's do this one first. So I'll give you 1 minute for that. I'm gonna raise this so that you guys can see, and then I'll also follow along. Okay. So 1 minute to draw this reflection. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can leave out some of the details you do not want because you only have 1 minute. How's that? I am not copying this exactly as is, but I think I am capturing the essence of it. So try to capture the, sorry, try to capture the shape at the middle. Look at shapes, look at lines. Don't look at the details of how it's made. I think that's 1 minute, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, a few more seconds before I put this down. And then for those who are done, make sure you have your art materials ready afterwards. I think that should be enough time. Then here is my work. So it turns out I did not capture it entirely. I noticed that this is a little small, but you know, I get the idea that the petals are a little bigger, you know. So I think I was able to capture that. So that's the subject part. Now, I am going to draw the negative painting part using my highlighters. So let's just do the highlighters part because this is a blue. This is a Stabilo highlighter. It's available in the Philippines. I'm not sure for other countries, but this is specifically designed for urban sketchers. So I just bought it because it was interesting. So I'm going to be doing the negative painting or painting the space around it, not the rafflesia, but just painting the space around it. So one technique in negative painting is to draw the outline of the subject first. So if you remember your blind contour drawing earlier, it's kind of the same output. There we go. And once we have the outline ready, you can now start coloring in the background. So the background could be as easy as coloring in this space here. There are many ways to fill in the background. You can just color in the space. You can also use lines and textures like this to fill in the whole space, like that. You can also do hatching. So when you say hatching, you're using series of lines and shapes to layer it like that. So nothing too perfect for now. I'm just showing you different ways on how to fill in the shape, but I preferred color. So there we go. Hey. So I think that's pretty much done. And okay, if you're done, please give me a thumbs up so that I can see. And check who among you are ready to move forward. All right, let's see. Okay. So while waiting for you to wrap that up, we'll take a pause from drawing or sketching. So we're going to be talking about nature journaling as a tool. So like you mentioned earlier, some of you are familiar with nature journaling. Some of you have heard it before, but you haven't really touched into that. You haven't really delved deeper into that. So I will be sharing my screen for a quick presentation. Bear with me. Okay. There we go. Let's make it in full screen. All right. So this is me doing a nature workshop, but that's not the point in case, I guess. We're going to be talking about nature journal. So what do we include in a nature journal? So basically we include words, we include pictures, we include numbers. We're not talking about just arts. It's not an art diary. Although you may see some of my sketchbooks later on that is more biased into the pictures, because that is how it translates to me. So you may be more of a journaler, so you may use words. You may be more of a number person, so you may use that as your strength. But nature journal is actually a simple journal where you can actually use words, pictures, and numbers for you to be able to take note of the environment around you. So in a sense, it makes science inclusive, and it makes nature learning, nature education inclusive, because you don't necessarily have to be an expert of something. And we'll know the reason why. So in the next slide. How do we do a nature journal? So here are some screenshots of me doing it in the field. So one is, this is in Mount Makiling in the Philippines. It's where I bought my materials with me. I usually work small so that I can finish faster. Because if you have a big sketchbook, then that's going to be a little, a little too intimidating. There we go. And I have this special palette, but you may design your own. You can have like a lot online as well. And then here's me just, sitting down. I'm literally just sitting down and, just started painting. And then I also take notes. So in nature journaling, we have 3 prompts. Number 1 is I notice. So when we say I notice, these are things that you observe. So you technically use your skill in, or your 5 senses rather, in observing. So I notice that this plant is green. I notice that this eucalyptus, the glupta tree, has a lot of colors. It can vary from sense of smell, sense of taste, if necessary, sense of taste, sense of sight, those observations that you have. So just take note of that. I notice. And then next one, or next prompt, is I wonder. So this prompt sparks your curiosity. This asks a question of who, what, when, where, and why, and how. So it can range from just basic questions of what species of plant this is, or what insect is the pollinator of this flower, or it can range from why does it turn into this color? How does it produce this kind of sap? Those kinds of questions. So it can range from the simple ones to a more complex questions. And lastly, it reminds me of. So this is more of an association. So when we say association, you associate things that are more relatable to you. That way you're able to remember them more easily. So you say the Ficus ulmifolia, for example, is a species of fig that when you touch the leaves, they're pretty much, it reminds me of a sandpaper. So that's pretty much it. So I will just quickly check if you guys can unmute yourself. So I'll stop sharing and then I'll make sure that you guys can unmute. Okay, I'll give some examples and then let's do the 3 nature journaling prompts. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. Okay, so we'll start with a basic leaf. Leaves are the most accessible. So I have this leaf here. Can anyone please unmute and tell me, what do they notice? I notice. Come on. Okay, maybe I should lead by example. I noticed that most of the color of the leaf is red, and it has this half part with brown colors. So anything else? How about the shape? You may unmute or you may type your answers. Okay. Or maybe I can volunteer if you guys want. Oh, I can't because you guys are probably unmuted. Okay, anyone want to try? May want to try? You guys are pretty quiet audience. All right. Maybe you can type your answers if you're a little too shy and then send them directly to me. I noticed that it's giant. That is true. It's a huge leaf compared to if you compare it to my hand. Um, yeah, let's see. It is pretty round in shape. Very good. I noticed the veins on the leaf. Oh, is it not? Okay, bear with me. Can you now unmute if you... Sorry about that. There we go. I see. Okay, someone is on mute. Can we try to say something? Okay. Notice that the margins are lobed. I like that. Okay.
It looks like the Rafflesia's petal.
Thank you. I like that. Maybe that might fit into the third prompt. The it reminds me of. Do you think that might fit a little more? It reminds me of a Rafflesia petal, but that's a good observation too. Okay. How about I wonder? Any questions that you may ask? I wonder. Maybe you can type it in, or maybe you'd like to unmute yourselves as well.
I wonder why it has bumps on one side.
This one is just these bombs, or just this one? Probably just this one. Yeah, okay. What plant? I wonder what plant it is from. I wonder what if why it only has bumps on one side. That is a good question. It is relatively bumpy if you try to tilt it. Yeah. Very good. I wonder how it turns into different shades of red. I wonder if it's a santol leaf. Hey, very good. What sizes it ranges? Very good, because you're wondering if this is from a tree, does it always appear to be this big? That's a good question. Those are really, I wonder why is it so big? I know, I'm wondering the same. So, and then it reminds me of, earlier someone mentioned the Rafflesia petal. So, if I may use my sense of feel for this one, the texture at the back of the leaf reminds me of
It reminds me of seagull.
very good, thank you. Color of leather. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for answering. Okay, for this one, it reminds me of a velvet texture. There we go. So I will also be practicing this to another sample if it is as fragile as it seems. So these are questions that you may ask because we're working differently or via online. So those are valid questions. Now, this is an interesting leaf that my mom picked just earlier before the demo. I will do a closer look to it. Okay. Really interesting. So I notice that there are bumps here that resemble that do not have anything inside. It's just bumps and it's hollow. I wonder what causes that. Is it a parasite? I wonder if it's burnt. I know. It reminds me of fall. Okay. And then those questions that you will put later on your journal, it doesn't have to be answered because the process of asking those questions alone.
I'm thinking. I wonder why there's black ball. There's black.
Yeah, why are those black bumps? Thank you so much. All right. I wonder if those are bugs. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then like I was mentioning, the process of questioning itself or asking questions alone sparks your curiosity. It makes your brain think. And that alone is already a wonderful gift and a wonderful activity to do. So that's the reason why you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to identify what kind of plant this is, what kind of leaf this is, though you can and you may, but it's not required. It doesn't require you to be an expert. And then probably it reminds me of popcorns, you know? So you can, in your nature journal, you can write these things. So let me show you a couple of my journal spreads, but mind you, I have been doing this for a while. My background really is in the arts. So whatever we will accomplish today will not necessarily have to be what you see on the screen. Our journey will be very different. So here is a sample of a casual nature journal spread that I have. I have identified the plant because my background in biology helped me do that. And I drew the leaf or the tree sap, sorry, and the surrounding plants. You notice I did an up close thing. And then I also have here the fruit in cross section because I sliced it, and then also the leaf for me to be able to help identify it. I wonder what species of wasp is inside. I asked this question because fig species supports a species of wasp. Buttressing roots, I noticed that. And then you notice how I also drew the fruit in different sections or different angles. Those are things that you can do. I have a love for figs, so I just drew this series of fig trees that are beside each other. And then I drew like a closed-up version so that it's like a zoomed in and zoomed out kind of version. So you can do zooming in, you can do zooming out as well. And then I just wrote the different kinds of fig species that are here. Okay. You can also include processes, cycles. It doesn't have to be necessarily the cycle of a wasp. You may have picked up a leaf, for example, and then you can paint it as it dries through time. That's a really interesting thing. In one of the nature journal activities we did here in the Philippines, I taught them how to draw the banana from the beginning and then eat them as they go. And then as you eat them, you draw the banana. So yeah, really interesting process. Okay. So other things that I do for nature journaling which is more on the technical side of things. My background in botanical arts has also helped me in drawing or sketching things. So this one is a dried bamboo leaf and I painted them and I pasted it here. So you can do the same. This is a real leaf, by the way. So you can paste it here and then keep it as an ephemera. This is the leaf when it was when it was not dried. So you can do the same as well. And this is an avocado plant, which I love. And I just concluded that this was a yellow spread. And then you can say a little about what you have drawn or sketched. Now, what I want you to do is to do a simple exercise of doing something similar later on. That is going to be our final piece. But let's talk about what are the things that you need to do first when you are nature journaling. So first is you need to prepare. So prepare what materials exactly. So we have two kinds of materials. We have the dry medium, we have the wet medium. So under the dry medium, of course, these are the materials that you do not require water for it to be used. So I have here, these are my dry mediums. Can you please type in the chat what dry mediums are you using, if you are using a dry medium? So for me, I am using crayons, highlighters, pens, it can be pencils, it can also be oil pastels, it can also be, what else? Colored pencils. Pencil color is awesome. What else? Alcohol markers. Wow. I haven't really explored alcohol markers, so that's really interesting to see. Also crayons. I like this. Okay. Very good. So while waiting for the others, oil pastels. Okay, color pencils. I'm going to put this aside. Let's talk about the materials that we have here. Most of you mentioned pencils, pencil markers. So I don't have that, but something similar would be this. So these are crayons, a regular, child's crayon. You may know, sorry about that. You may say that this is a little, too much for an adult to use, maybe just limited to kids. It's actually not. You can find it useful. You see, you don't necessarily have to use this as the base color. If you may imagine, you can use a watercolor and then color this on top. So maybe this one, for example, marker, then I can do textures on top of that. Now that may remind me of a texture of a leaf. So the strength of the dry medium is that you can see their edges. You can see where it stopped. It's a hard edge. So it's perfect for textures, for details that are sharp, in focus. Okay, let's put that aside. Similar with these markers. For alcohol markers, however, they behave kind of like a transition to wet medium already, because the way that they spread, sometimes they can mix. So black highlighter. Awesome, right? Okay. So one thing that I want you to take note of when using pens or those that require inks is their water solubility. That's the only thing that you need to be worried about. Well, not necessarily worried, but you need to take note of. Because if you are going to be using multimedia, meaning you're going to be using different mediums, say for example this, let's say I've drawn a simple leaf here. There we go. And I've placed a lot of details and I wanted to color that, for example, yellow. So let's grab some yellow here. And I did not know that this is actually water soluble. So what it happens is the ink starts to bleed. So that is actually a beautiful thing for me. It's a personal preference. I like it when it bleeds. Look at that. Like the colors moving and traveling into the water, but maybe it's not something that you prefer. So knowing beforehand if your pen or the materials you're using will bleed, is water soluble or waterproof, will help you achieve a more the result that you would want. So Bob Ross actually calls these happy accidents, and that is the reason why I see these challenges as opportunities. So for example, for this one, I used a waterproof pen for this one. So even if I wet this, it doesn't bleed. Okay. So waterproof pens can be bought. Those are the pens that are used by architectural students. The micron pens, those. So yeah, but your regular ink pens, your regular writing pens, those are probably water soluble pens. And then with pencil, of course, we're going to be talking about being able to erase them. So you have this sense of comfort. There's no commitment because you're using a pencil. Okay, since we're transitioning to the wet mediums already, can you tell me what mediums are you using today, if you will be using? So wet mediums are those mediums that you require water, whichever stage you're adding them, just to make it activated. So you have here acrylics. I have my watercolors. This is a giant set of watercolors. You don't have to have this. Okay. You may also have poster paints, gouache. Okay, I see gouache. Awesome. All right. Good. All right, so let's talk about watercolor first. So watercolor is a transparent medium. So when you use it, it uses water to travel. So by the word itself, water is the pigment, and then water is the medium through which it travels, and then color is the pigment. So you want to think about watercolor as a fish. Why? Because if I place, let's say, water here, and then I drop some paints, the fish or the pigment would travel to where the water is. Let me just move that because I noticed there is reflection. There we go. Hold on. It's refocusing. Come on. Okay. There we go. So where there's water, that is where your pigment will travel. You see that? Okay, that's something that you need to take note of with watercolor. Also, it's a transparent medium, meaning it dries lighter. So even if you notice sometimes that when you're doing a wash and then later on it doesn't come off as bright as you want it. So yeah. The strength of wet mediums, especially watercolors, is that you can create either a hard edge like this one, something that is sharp, or a soft edge like this, where you can blend colors. You can do a similar effect with gouache, with poster paints, but when it comes to acrylic, it's a relatively opaque medium. And what we mean by that is we are using paints that when you settle in the paper and you haven't, when it dries, it doesn't get reactivated with water. What do we mean? Once it dries, it's done for good. It's like your nail polish. So you don't, teacher, what if I make a mistake? Then that's okay. The strength of the acrylic lies on its, sorry, I got lost. The strength in acrylic is being able to layer them. So if you make a mistake, just cover it up. With watercolors, you may not be able to do the same. So whichever medium you're using, you need to know them more. These are like people as well. So you need to get to know more your materials before you'd be able to achieve a specific effect that you want. So we're done with the dry mediums. Let's talk about sketchbooks. If you're using watercolors, and especially wet mediums, poster paints, you need watercolor papers or papers that are thick enough to handle several layers. So we're talking about thickness here of the paper. So when we say paper, these are the 300 GSM. When we say GSM, you may find that in the market, refers to the thickness. So when we say 300 GSM, we're talking about how thick the watercolor paper is. Most bond papers or bond papers or copy papers just range from 70 to 80 GSM. Those are your printer papers. And usually when you put water on it, it warps, or you notice how it buckles because it is saturated with water. It can't handle that much. So that's the only thing that you need to take note of when using sketchbooks. And for your sketchbooks, you can also it can also range from bigger sketchbooks or smaller ones. So I'm using a smaller sketchbook, specifically postcard size. So you know how big a postcard is, 4 inch by 6 inches. So I am going to show you my sketchbook here. Let me zoom out a little bit or move up. There we go. Okay. So this is my sketchbook when I'm going hiking. We did a nature trip. And do not be fooled by this. It looked plain and with no color when we were doing this on the hike. I was able to refine it afterwards. So you can do that. Here we go. This is my nature journal. I wonder, smells like chocolate. So it reminds me of chocolate. This plant is very interesting. This is a jade vine. And then notice how I also took notes of the direction of how this seed was flying. It's like a plane. You can also draw the process of how things or flies or the direction. If you are more of a words kind of person, you can also take notes like that. And then I just love overlapping images. And again, I did this when I was at home already. And even if you're using just a reference photo, that's fine. Nobody's going to judge you. It's for your own learning anyway. This is in a survey that we did in Mount Pulag, and I used metadata to pretty much take note of the presence of pine trees every 1 meter. So I just did a tally, so you can do pretty much the same as well. I also did this kind of directional motion of this specific plant because I didn't know what it was at that time. So you can do the same. This one is more of an artsy side. It's not a nature journal technically. But again, the pictures speak more to me than words, than numbers. So that's the reason why you can see, again, my sketchbook filled with more of the pictures aspect. Let's see more. This one is, I like compiling things and then drawing them. So you can do the same with ephemeras that you find at home. You can also do a note taking like that. There we go. Okay. So that is what you need for the sketchbook. Next is observe. So how do we observe things? Let me share my screen again. Okay. Sorry, there we go. So here is observe. Okay. So try to read this. I'll give you 1 minute and try to read this really quick, just at the back of your mind, like in your head. So I'll give you 1 minute, try to read this. And then after reading this, type in the chat if yes, if you were able to read it successfully. And then type in the chat no, if you weren't able to actually understand what is on the screen. Yes, awesome, yes. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. Okay, awesome. So this is interesting because our brain works in a way that we're able to understand the whole word or the sentence as long as the first and the last letter is there in the right position. So imagine how fast our brain thinks, and imagine how our brain thinks or comprehends things in the natural world. If you see a tree, the brain comprehends it as a tree. And that is beautiful, but at the same time, a disadvantage when you're doing a nature journal because you get to become overwhelmed. Imagine if you have like a tree in front of you, you're going to be probably thinking, I might not be able to draw that. That's a lot of details. That's a lot of, shapes and lines. But what this teaches us is when you observe, you need to just use art elements, specifically line, shapes. The texture and form will follow, as well as space and value later on. And this is just a beautiful thing that I teach students. So let me just see. Okay. This is a native plant in the Philippines. And it's called malapapaya. And when you are trying to sketch this, you want to see lines. So try to see the branch is made of a straight line, and then from there, a lot of lines just grows. And then if you are going to check or see the leaf arrangement, maybe I can turn off my video here first. There we go. All right. If you're gonna check the leaf arrangement right here, you can focus, or you can see that this is just like a couple of those waving lines that are stacked on top of each other. So that's how you see lines in nature. In this example, we have the benguet pine or the Pinus cassia. And where you see the lines here is, you see that the lines are kind of curving in a way. Do you see those? And then the leaves are pointing upwards. These are, just not effortlessly drawn, but you can definitely do the same. Just by looking at the lines, you're able to understand how to begin drawing the pine itself. So it does look intimidating here, but once you start and you know where to begin, just by looking at the lines, then you're able to know where to start. And from there, you can use it as a guide to continue. This is a closed up version of the pine. And what you can see here is textures, and it might be a little too overwhelming again. You might be thinking, oh, that's a lot of textures. But what you can do is use lines again to kind of create and imitate that texture. Just look at the details and see how it presents itself to you. Okay. Next element is shapes. So different trees have different shapes. For example, I'm using trees as a reference because this is, we have a lot of urban green spaces here, but you definitely can apply this to other subjects that you may have. So in this case, these are the shapes of the tree. One is irregular. Most of the trees are irregularly shaped. And then you also have these, and then some of these are triangular. Some of these are like fireworks. So those are shapes that you can recognize. So try to recognize the shapes in your ephemeras that you have. And in that way, that makes it more easier for you to comprehend, again, the subjects in front of you. For example, this nata, flowers. I did not paint this, in detail. And for me to be able to do that, that would take so much time. The flowers are so intricate. And what I did is I just dabbled on the different, dark and light areas. So just focusing on the shapes. And what I did here is I squinted my eyes so that the picture becomes blurry. And then after that, I just painted that with a squinted eyes. This is the Manila palm. And then the balitbitan, this is more of like a circular shape. This one has more of a kind of like a oriented in a horizontal manner. So those kinds of observation. And I use trees as subjects because most of the time trees are very taunting. So okay, we have a lot of examples. You also, apart from the shapes, you also want to take note of the direction of the things, where things and lines and shapes go. So in this case, in this tree, the leaves seem to go upwards. So you want to know that the lines that you'll be taking or drawing would be going upwards. Next is sketch. So before I proceed, let me just start my video again. Okay. So when you're sketching, I want you to write your name in your scratch paper. So just write your name, your complete name, like that. Okay. And then while you're writing, just before you lift your pen or you lay your pen down, I want you to stop at the last letter and then show me your hand, how you're holding it. So just for me, I was writing it this way. So show me your hands in the camera, how you're holding it, how you're writing. You may be writing like this. That's also fine. Maybe writing it like this. Can you show me your hands? Okay, there we go. Hey. All right. Have you noticed that most of our hands are close to the pen? Yeah. And then most of our hands are actually curved in a way that is controlled. You notice that? It's like we want to take control of the pen, right? But in drawing, you don't actually do that. You don't actually delve into the details. And what this does is it gets you into the details so quickly. There are different kinds of lines, and I want you to recognize those kinds of lines when doing a nature journal. So one is what we call the finger lines. So when we say finger lines, you're basically holding the pen closer to the tip, and then if you're gonna be making a circle, your range would be just a little portion of it, like this. So try to do that. And then just try to see how long will the lines be, your lines will be creating. So like that. So maybe just draw a heart, simple shapes. And you notice that the range is just small, right? Moving forward to the next type of lines, we have what we call the wrist lines or the hand lines. Hand lines, you want to move a little farther from the tip, like right here, as if you're holding the pen like a chopstick. Yeah, that. And then you want to notice that when you create a circle, your range starts to broaden. Yeah, from here, it becomes like this. So what does this do? You notice that the lines are a little more loose compared to this. Your hand lines would be a little thicker, and then your finger lines will be a little thicker than your hand lines. So try to draw something, maybe this leaf. Let's try to draw this leaf using the hand lines. You may lift your hand if necessary from the paper. So I'm gonna start from scratch right here. So just draw your leaf real quick and make sure that you're holding it right here and don't grip. Okay, loosen up like a chopstick, like that. So draw it real quick. Okay, and I notice that the veins are here. The arrangement of the veins are not necessarily, opposite. They're not. There we go. So what this does is it makes your lines more confident. So when we say confident lines in urban sketching, that is why some artists say the artist here was drawing in a confident manner. These are confident lines because you're going to be able to make lines that are quick and also not thick like that. You see how that differs from this leaf? Yeah. And what this does is it puts too much pressure on you. You don't want that. You want this to be a relaxing journey. And then we have arm line, which is, of course, you use your arms from one point to another to make a straight line. So it's not necessary because for now we're just working small, but I just wanted you to know. Okay. So those are the different kinds of lines. So whenever you're sketching, you want to do that. So we'll grab a couple of examples. I have a lot of leaves here, but I would not want to be imposing too much of the leaves from you. So I'll be grabbing a example from a book from the National Museum of the Philippines, and we are going to be drawing this clam. Really exciting. So this is another way or technique that you can do your nature journal by drawing the different sections of the clam. So you may choose any section. You can do all if you're a fast worker. But one thing I need you to do is to draw it in using hand lines in a confident manner. So work quick. What do we mean? Don't take your time in, drawing those lines. Work quick. Like that. All right, so I'll be drawing just these three. You may draw this side as well if you'd like, but I'll be drawing this three for reference. And I'll show you how quick it is. But again, take note, it took me a lot of time and practice for me to be able to achieve this kind of quick method in sketching. Also, urban sketching helps because joining the urban sketching community has helped me work faster. And I think that's a skill that you want to apply if you're, or develop if you're doing nature journaling and you're a busy kind of person. I know we all are busy. So yeah, it was as quick as that. I was able to suggest already. So let's look at the lines first. I'm going to be looking here, lines first. And then it's kind of like a wavy manner. That is beautiful. Wow. Okay. Let us, and then there's another groove here. It's like a heart shape. It reminds me of a heart shape. And then I noticed that these are kind of like arranged in a, what do you call this? A brick manner, or in such a way that they interlock. So let's color that in. It's a little, there's a little dark area here. I'm sorry, I'm using my finger lines. I'll use my hand lines again. Okay. So you need also a reminder from people to actually let loose. Ooh, this looks like a heart. Isn't that beautiful? Nature is beautiful. You find a lot of shapes and then you associate it with things that you love. Okay. These are heart. It doesn't have to be perfect in this case. Say, for example, you have like just, 30 minutes for your break at work. That might be like a little amount of time for you to do a detailed drawing. So just do a nature journal. Okay. And then for this, I want you to practice the nature journal prompts. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, so just write it anywhere here in your journal. Okay, I notice that this is overlapping already. This is a little too big. Now, this is different from a scientific illustration. If you want it to be precise, that's okay. But if you're just developing your senses of observation and skill, then this should be enough for the short amount of time that you have. I do notice that this is not in proper proportion as to how this looks like. So I'm going to fix that. Okay, because I wanted to capture the essence or the shape of it. And this is a little longer. Okay, so I have that. And then you can also draw the spikes or the curves here. You can also suggest. So I see it as lines that are kind of like C-shaped like that. So we can draw those. You see that? Magic. You already have textures just by drawing little C's in nature. Okay. And you can also do the same here. This time it doesn't look like a C. It looks like a, what do you call this? A comma or an apostrophe? Because it's sideways. So I'm gonna do something like that. Wow. And I swear whenever I'm doing these demos, the output of the students' works are way more beautiful than mine. So I can assure you, and I'm very much confident that you're making way more beautiful images than I have here. And yeah, but I am not sad about that. The important thing is you're enjoying the process. You're learning. Okay, so I have those things here. Now let's try to do the nature journaling prompts. I notice. I wonder. It reminds me of. So it can be, you can position it in just in this way, as simple as that, or you can, there's an ant, sorry, ant. You can also do a zoomed in kind of version. It's also fine. So right here, I notice that the pattern is alternating. There are grooves as well, and bumps. Okay. I wonder if the arrangement of the grooves determine what kind of species clam this is. Or it can be as simple as, I wonder where they live. Yeah. I wonder what they eat, what their diet is. It feels great. Thank you. I just saw it late. Sorry. It's so nice. It reminds me of, so like this one, it reminds me of a heart. It reminds me of an almond. In this case, it reminds me of a fan. So, you know, those kinds of things. Okay, so as simple as that. Okay. So that is how you sketch. We're not even into the coloring part, which is the most exciting part for me. If you're more into the numbers person, if numbers make so much sense to you, that is okay. You can maybe what do you call this? Count the grooves that you have here. Some species are determined by the number of grooves they have, the number of what do you call this? The bumps they have. For plants, you also sometimes count certain parts, and that's the determining factor of what kind of species they are. So you can do that as well. If you're doing this on site and you were probably in the beach, imagine that you're looking for clams. You can also do a metadata. So maybe you can say that a tally system. So instead of doing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kind of tally system, I'm gonna zoom in, okay, for others who are working, sorry. Instead of doing that kind of tally system, you can actually, this is by John Muir Laws, do this. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those are dots. And then you make lines next. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and then across. So what it does is, if you're going to put that in a tally system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this means these are 10 numbers of whatever you are counting. So if you're tallying probably shells in the sea, that's going to be exciting. You can also map out data where you found it. Say, for example, if you like maps, My brother loves maps, so that's something that resonates so much with him. Maybe this is the map of the beach. Okay. And then this is the shore. You made a simple, vision of how it looks like. And then you can place a tally of how many you found here. And then you can also mark where you also found the others, like that. And that way it gives you a visual sense of how many is 10, how many is 100. And in that sense, you're doing actually a simple distribution map. So that's where you incorporate numbers, words, and pictures. So this is just sketching part. We're not yet done. All right, let us move forward to the next. Paint. Ooh, really exciting. So when we are talking about paint, we're talking about the different mediums that you're using, but I don't want you to get intimidated with whatever medium you're using. I will be sharing my screen again. You guys bored? You probably can also grab some drinks if you would like. All right. There you go. Bear with me for a while. It's not yet. There we go. Awesome. So when you're talking about colors, these are the things that I want you to take note of. I know colors can be a little intimidating for others. I know it's a little too much to, absorb. And so I want you to look, instead of colors, look at the values. And I will be talking a lot about colors because this is where I struggled the most when I was beginning painting or colors before I worked with monochrome sketches, because that resonates with me and it's easier to understand. So yeah, when you're working with a pencil, for example, you can probably simplify your shades into 3 values: the light value, middle value, and the dark value. And in nature, you can interpret this if you put colors. This is the light areas, this is the dominant color, in the shadows. This is for an example of a tree, okay? So if you have a leaf, probably this selection will be different. But for a tree, as an example, again, this is where the color where the lightest colors, which are most probably yellow, because the sun probably creates this warmth in the trees, and it turns most of the greens into yellow. The dominant color is usually just green, and the shadows would be a relatively dark green. So this is how paint would present, especially in watercolor. This is how it would present itself in the market, because that is the reason why they have this washed color in the background, for you to be able to understand that this is the tonal value range of these colors. So some colors, for watercolors, for example, have a wide range of value for this one. And then yellow, you cannot extend the value as much as the blue color. So this is for the trees, for the example, again. Usually I just use these 3 colors. And yeah, this is an example of the tree that is so intimidating that sometimes we really can't comprehend so much. But you notice how when you break it down into colors, you notice the yellow, the dominant green colors, and the dark green colors behind. So I will stop here because this is getting a little too intimidating. So bear with me while okay, I lost that. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So when we talk about colors, what I want you to do for the first exercise is to create a tonal value or extend the values of your colors, whatever you're using. It can be just a crayon. So I'm going to do an example for the crayon. For the highlighters or the alcohol markers, you may need to layer it. And then for watercolors, that's going to be with the help of your water. So for the crayons, let's make a tonal value. Let's make a color from the dark to light. You can make it in a rectangle kind of form, or you can make it in a a circle kind of form. So this is going from dark to light. So that's the tonal value range of this color, this crayon. I'm sorry about that. It's again glitching or not focusing. There we go. Take this time. And then for this highlighter, it's probably not gonna take, I'm not gonna be able to make it less light. So what I want to do is to just create a layer to it. And then I'll try to just make it darker. And then up to the point that I'm kind of destroying the paper already. So at that stage, I know that this is how much this color can be pushed. So that's for the marker. How about if you're using just pens? That's okay. You can, the technique for this is you can space out your lines so that it looks like it's becoming faded. You can create hatching. So the lines will be even. Sorry about that. But with layers of lines, you're able to create this shadow effect. So let's try that with watercolor as well. When you're posting it on the social media and you feel like this is a swatch, it makes it look like you're a pro. So we kind of like tease sometimes that when you're doing this on a piece and you have a swatch and a side, it makes it look like, you know, you're a pro. So it does, it actually does. So with that being said, let's just try to color match some things you find in nature. So we did this earlier in the Philippine Nature Journaling Club. And let's try to find a leaf. My mom has gathered some leaves for me. Thank you so much for my mom. And this is something that you may find interesting or familiar with. This is, anybody know what this flower is? Because this is pretty much common from other countries as well. Plumeria, very good. Calachuchi. Okay, let me just zoom out because I think it's bouncing. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so we don't need to draw the calachuchi first. We're gonna just focus on the color aspect of things. So, what I usually draw, if say, for example, I just want to take a break from what I'm doing and I don't really have time to draw a flower, you know, the full-blown image of something, I draw I paint what I call tiny worlds. So in this tiny worlds, this is really interesting, super cool. I draw a circle. And in that, sorry about that, keeps bouncing. There we go, steady. Bear with me while I fix this. Maybe a dark background. So what I do with these tiny worlds, I call it tiny worlds because it's like you're creating your own world. This is kind of like a ratio version of how much color or what color are there in a subject. So I will be using watercolors. Feel free to use whatever colors you have. And I will be choosing a leaf. So for this example, maybe let's use this leaf. Okay, can you see it? Oh, let's move it. All right. So in this kind of leaf, I will be determining what colors there are here. And so most of the dominant color I can see is yellow. And then I also see some greens. I also see some browns and some lighter greens. And then this is, in the camera, it looks like a little orangey, so I'm gonna consider that. All right, so putting the calachuchi aside, I'm gonna take a sample here for the leaf first. So let's do this here. Starting with a yellow color, because I noticed that most of the dominant color here, maybe it takes up 70%. So I'm just gonna draw 70%, fill the shape with 70%. And then some of them is brown. So I'm just gonna fill that in with a brown color. And the brown takes up probably 20 or 25%. Okay, 25%. So let's just fill it up with an estimate of 25%. And then I am gonna put some greens because I think that there is like 25% green here. You don't have to copy the whole thing. You just need to represent it as such. So hold on, bear with me. I will zoom in. Okay, so this is my final output. So this is a tiny world that I created inspired by the leaf. And what this does is it makes me focus on the colors and also test your estimation. So in this plumeria or galachuchi, we'll do that next. But for this leaf, I can label it, for example, I don't know what specifically leaf this is, but probably it's a fig. I'm guessing, so probably fig species. There we go. So I can label that world as a fig species. And what it does is, this is such a beautiful thing, because if you have like 5 minutes to spare in your work, you can just draw these tiny worlds and then just label it. And what this does eventually, if you go outside, you tend to look at things not as a mix of colors in nature, but as colors in your palette already. So you notice how I see that this is a warm yellow. I notice that this is a green in my palette. This is like a mix of a brown and orange kind of that. So next time you go out to nature, you're able to see or interpret those colors as colors in your palette already. So like this, these are samples of what I did earlier. So let's try to do that with the kalachuchi. So I think I've pressed that already for kalachuchi. So you don't necessarily have to draw this kalachuchi, but try to identify or make a small world. It's a small world after all. Make a small world of the colors present in kalachuchi. Now the kalachuchi is, oops, that is a happy accident. Okay. Well, there is a yellow in kalachuchi, so I guess that is there. Okay. So there is a yellow in kalachuchi, and most of it is still white. So I'm just gonna leave some of the areas white. And then I'm gonna add a pink color to it. Not a strong pink color, it's more of a purpley pink. Do you notice that? So I'm just gonna put that here probably. These are just blotches like that. I think it occupies just a little amount or a little space. And I think that's done. It's just like this is the world of the kalachuchi. You can probably interpret it in a different way, but next time I'm going to be seeing kalachuchi, I can see this as a cool yellow. This is a pink, but not that kind of pink, that hot pink. It's more of a violet pink shade, you know? So make tiny worlds. Do you have your ephemeras with you? Because if you do, try to make a tiny world out of that as well. Small world. So I'll give you 2 minutes for that, and then we'll go ahead and pause and share each other's works. So meanwhile, I'm also going to be doing the same here with my other ephemeras. If you don't have any, you can also just check in with what I'm doing and make the tiny worlds with whatever I have right here. So let's pick a leaf. So this one is a brownish, yellowish leaf. Okay. So I'll give you 2 minutes for that. This is the brown that I have. I think that it matches. You can also use crayons, by the way, or colored pencils. I think it has yellow colors, but I don't think that yellow is a little bright. I want to make it a little more dull. So let's try to dull it down a little bit. We're going to be talking about color mixing in a bit, so I know we're going to be delving deeper into the artsy side of things, but I swear this will help you boost your confidence. Okay, so that is it for this leaf. Next leaf. Next is this leaf. This is really beautiful. Look at that pattern. Okay, I think it has yellow. So let's try to, sometimes in the tiny worlds, I get a little to explore a little. So I want to imitate that kind of pattern right here. So let's try to fill the whole space yellow first. Then let's try to imitate that pattern. So what do I mean? I'm gonna make some green and let's try to copy whatever pattern this is here. And that's the beauty of watercolor. Do you see that wet on wet technique? This is what you call wet on watercolor because it's not a sharp edge. There we go. So right now, this is what I created. I copied that texture. So the next time I see something similar in nature that has the same kind of pattern, I am now not seeing textures or the patterns of the leaf. I am seeing watercolors moving. Yeah. So that makes it easier for you to observe things. You use art elements to aid you to observe. I see that there are lines here. If I tilt it, you see that lines, the veins. And some of those veins are actually similar to other leaves that you may have found, and it might be the same species. This shape is a little more like an eye. You tilt it like that. So some leaves are not shaped like that. Some leaves are a little rounded like this. Ooh, I like the texture on this one. And again, a reminder, we're using leaves for now because leaves are the most accessible nature finds that you may have, especially if you're in the urban setting. And this just keeps you to explore. Okay, enough with leaves. Maybe let's start with seeds. So I have here a nata seed. It's a preserved nata seed and it's a little broken down. Let's make a tiny world out of that. So this will be my last tiny world exercise. I noticed that this is a little dark, but it's mostly dominated with a lighter shade of brown. You also take note of the saturation. Okay. There we go. So that is the nata world. So this is the seed. Okay. So after you've done these tiny worlds, the beauty about this as well is once you're done with these, when you have time next time, you can actually draw the image right beside it. Or again, if you don't have time, you can just paste this here. You can use a tape and then just press it down. So what it does is it keeps you, it's kind of like memory keeping. And then you can also start doing the I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of process here. Okay, so let's one more minute and then we'll move forward to the next activity. Oh, sorry. How are you all doing? So the next concept we're going to be talking about is color mixing. Mixing colors. Are you guys more of a color person or a monochrome person? I honestly am a monochrome kind of person before. Right now I'm a color kind of person. But I'm going to show you why we're having fun. Thank you. I'm going to show you why you don't need to buy a whole set of art materials. I know it can get super overwhelming, you know, just seeing my paintings right here, like the paints right here. You may be tempted to, you know, have or buy this set. And I know I've been on that phase too. But it's not necessarily required to have these kinds of colors, you know. Right now, as I'm kind of like narrowing down in my art journey, I realized that I only need just a few colors. And I am going to show you a quick exercise that I learned in botanical arts that I think you can also apply when identifying colors. So, is everybody done? I think you guys are. Okay. when identifying colors in botanical art, for example, this one, or let's choose another leaf, the big leaf we have earlier. There we go. It's hard to identify what kind of shade this is, you know? But for you to be able to color match correctly, again, this is like an advanced skill already. So I usually just punch a hole in the paper. So you can just do this using a puncher or anything similar. And what it does is it isolates the rest of the color and puts it in contrast to the white paper, which is what you mostly use for painting. So, right now I see that this is a red, but it's actually, when you put it on a white paper, it has a lot more of a brownish red kind of color. It's not a pure red. And then when you compare it here, it's more of a dark brown color. Yeah. And then you can do the same with other greens. So I have a couple of green colors here that might look similar. These are two cloves of a green. Maybe just these two, because these are two species. There we go. But when you isolate them, and then you see this is actually a lighter kind of green. So if you're that kind of person who is having trouble identifying what color this is, this might help. So still like a tiny world. See that? Those are so cute. It resembles that tiny world that you made here. And then this can also be your guide in making texture, copying textures. Okay. Right now, I'm just going to share with you what I carry in when I'm painting outside. This is what we call a limited palette. And I'm using the, you know, the RGB system, the red, green, blue. And the primary colors we were taught, it's the red, the blue, and the yellow. But that presents so much, especially as an educator, so much challenge because some participants are mixing colors and they're not achieving a vibrant mix. So you know how those printers are called CMY colors, this uses the CMY system. These are because they have the cyan, that's inverted cyan, there we go. The magenta, and yellow, it's still inverted. Okay, so these are printed in acetates. You can also do that if your printer would allow. And this is a trick from Julia Tricky in botanical arts. So what it does is I can just slide this into my hole with a white background. And let's just do some sort of mixing with these and then compare the greens that we have here. So starting with this green. Okay, it's a little dark, isn't it? Okay, let me just move backwards a little bit. Okay, so what makes green? Yellow and blue. So let's put a yellow there. Maybe this, because I think it's a strong yellow, so it's a warm yellow. And then I'm gonna put a blue. If that is the blue that I want, like that kind of less saturated, is it enough to make it a green? No. Maybe let's move it to the more saturated kind of blue. Yes, that leans more to it, doesn't it? Yeah. This helps you visualize how much colors you want to put, especially just to color match. So this is already a technical skill. You don't necessarily need to do this for all. But yeah, it's a beautiful skill that you can apply as well in doing a nature journal, especially if you're doing color matching. Because colors can be a little too intimidating, especially for others. So let's proceed with doing your own nature journal. So grab your ephemeras. I have here my ephemeras as well. I'm going to show you how much mess I have in my table. All for showing you a lot of things that I want to share. Okay. Here. Okay. So I have leaves here ranging from a huge leaf, a brown leaf, yellow leaf, and then I also have red leaves. I'm pretty sure some of you have leaves from across their countries that are have more varieties. And then I also have seeds here, you know, that are really interesting. These are I think mangium seeds. It's like, it reminds me, when I asked in my Instagram channel, what does this remind you of? Some people said it reminds them of a barbecue. So you can actually do that. Okay, so choose an ephemera that you want, and then try to sketch it, paint it, and do the "it reminds me of." Hi. Okay, I see you in the chat. You guys are saying hi. Awesome. So let's try to do a journal. So does everybody have their ephemeras? And if you don't, you can also follow along with me. So I'm just going to use one. I just showed you the different ranges of leaves that I have here, and that's also a nature journaling opportunity. You can also draw different leaves that you have found, you know. I commonly do that. So starting with one leaf, just one. And using hand lines, because again, hand lines are needed for you to be able to create confident lines and to not instill pressure on yourself. So I'm drawing this from the view on my screen so that it's going to be a little more accurate in what you see. Okay, you notice how my lines are a little soft? It's because I'm not putting too much pressure. I'm holding it like this. Hello. Okay, I can see a lot of people saying hi. Okay, the curves goes a little bump here, and then you go down and it ends here. So just think of your pen going on a journey. So strong line, there's a curve, there's another curve, and then another one, and it ends right here. Oops, I went a little overboard, didn't I? Okay, so you can draw also the veins, but I personally prefer not to, especially if you're using watercolor. So I'll stop here in the sketching part, and then I'll proceed with painting it. So let's try to paint that. So what's the dominant color that you see here? Based on the tiny world. So let's just try to make a tiny world so that we can make a color study instead of making swatches, because sometimes swatches are a little too tiring, if I may say. You can just make tiny worlds. Okay, these are 25%. Then I see also green. There we go, just like what we did earlier. Okay, that's my tiny world. Yellow, very good. So yellow would be the dominant color. And what kind of yellow? Maybe, is it a warm yellow, a cool yellow? And how would you know if you're using a warm or a cool color? Because it's going to be a little, you know, confusing sometimes. So you want to think of it as, you know how you're editing a photo and you're moving the temperature to the warm or the cool? Think of your color as a picture and then try to move your temperature to the warm or the cool color. Wow, you have a leaf also. You have the same kind of leaf, I guess. It's also a browning kind of thing. Beautiful. Okay, so for this one, I think this is more of a warm yellow because it's leaning toward the warm side, the temperature palette. So I'm gonna grab some yellow right here. Okay, let's put that here. Okay, and I'm gonna fill the whole page. And when you're using watercolor and you have a lot of space to fill, make sure you put a lot of water first, especially if you're gonna be using a uniform wash. And notice how I'm not being very particular with my strokes. Just, I'm trying to imitate how I work, especially when I'm outside. I feel like I have just like 5 minutes and then everyone needs to go. So maybe I am in a hike and we just stopped there for like 2 minutes. So I just need to rush and color everything super fast. And it's kind of the same with urban sketching, you know? You're having this trouble of the time constraints. And everything changes so fast. So I'm gonna switch to my brown real quick, just because it's an intuitive thing. You can do green first. So I'm gonna drop colors here. And then I noticed that the veins are yellow. So I'm gonna leave tiny spaces here. There we go. And then, oops, the brown actually doesn't go all the way, but okay. Let's try to imitate that. And this is how I really work. Like sometimes this is how my paintings look like. I'm showing you the being vulnerable here and showing you what it actually looks like before I refine the piece. So this is also the reason why some artists say do not believe whatever you see on Instagram, because sometimes they're actually just the refined version. And yeah, this is what happens in real life, you know, really quick, especially with the brushes. You also hold it towards the end. Okay, I see some patterns here, and oh, my leaf is drying, my paper's drying. Let's switch to the green. Okay, maybe we're hiking again, remember? And then maybe my friend is already calling me and I'm gonna say, hold on, I'm almost done. So I am just going to capture that real quick. Woo! And then I am making others wait, probably. You can imagine that. Imagine you're in at work and you only have just a few minutes of break. So especially for the mommies and the daddies, you can also do this activity. So just insert it in your free time. So you notice how this is a sharp edge, but this green right here has a soft edge. So I'm just gonna touch that with water so that it still kind of is a little loose. So it's a soft edge now. Okay, magic of watercolor. Okay. Now I am gonna go back with the brown to highlight the veins. Because the vein is a little prominent. Okay, there we go. So compared to how I do botanical pieces, sometimes that takes time. I am not gonna take my time right here. It's just a fun way for me to relax. Okay, and then I'm gonna use the yellow right here. Okay, now let's do the I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, because we have only a little amount of time. So I notice. Come on, anybody give me I notice? Let's make I'm gonna turn on the mute. Okay, I think that option is on. So try to unmute and then give me an example of I notice.
It looks kind of charred.
Charred, I like that. I notice it looks charred. Thank you. Who else? I love that there are kids here. You know how kids are very confident with their works. And when we grow old, we just lose the artist in ourselves and we have so much doubt. This is why we do nature journaling as well. We want to take that doubt and that nervousness away. We want to just tap in the artist in us. Very good. I noticed there are a few dark spots in the leaf. Okay. How about I noticed that because you know how the leaves sometimes are often green? Well, here in the Philippines. And then as they dry, they lose their chlorophyll pigments, which is the pigment responsible for making a leaf green. And so that's the reason why some of the pigments shine through, which is the brown and the yellow pigments and also the red pigments. And yeah. Sorry. All right. So for the pigments, and I notice here that there are still green areas here. So I wonder, is this leaf still drying, in the process of drying, or losing its chlorophyll pigments? I don't know. So does that mean, I wonder if it just fell recently? Yeah, that's a good question. I noticed that there are different colors. I notice, or I wonder, does this, if that means that this leaf is still undergoing the phase or the stage of drying? It reminds me of, what does this remind you of?
Autumn.
Autumn, I like that. It reminds me of the color of autumn. Okay, what else? Hmm. Well, I'm gonna focus on the texture. And it reminds me of a wax. Probably because this is a wax plant. That would make sense. Okay. So that is just one object. Reminds me of a field.
The yellow reminds me of barbecue.
It does, doesn't it? Now I'm getting hungry. No, don't say that. Don't do that to me. Um, okay, so we are done with just one leaf. Let's move to another subject. I am going to be showing you, if you don't have nature subjects around you and it's not accessible, especially for those living in the urban areas, that might be a little too difficult. You might actually refer to books or, things that you find at home, and you can actually do the same kind of exercise, tiny worlds. So I am going to move to my next subject, which is a moth. This is a really interesting moth. Look at that. This is a sticker that I made, but I'm going to use it as an example since I don't have a moth, an actual moth right here. So let's just stick it right here. Here we go. Such a cute moth. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you guys can see it better. Okay. So time for me to do a nature journal about that. So, okay, I am going to copy this. Let's just imagine that this is a real moth in a wall. And I know that with moths, it is pretty much stagnant, but let's assume that it might go away after a few seconds. So I am gonna work fast, just try to cover in the general shape. There we go. And then there's antennae, and then here, and then there's the spots. And what's interesting about the spots is there's patterns in there. Yeah, it moves in this W kind of motion. You see that? So I'm going to copy that. That's the beauty of patterns in nature. Sometimes you see patterns and it's easy to copy with that. And I use just, small circles for the lines here. And if you want to do like quick lines, that's also fine. All right, so let's color it in. Say, for example, this moth is probably going to go away in just a few seconds. So let's try to color match. What is the dominant color here? And we're thinking of primary colors, gravy, red, and yellow. So let's make an orange. That's a very strong color, right? So let's make a tiny world out of that. Tiny world right here. Okay. Oops. And then it has some black spots. So hold on, let's fill the whole shape right here. Tiny world. It has some black spots. So I am just going to imitate that pattern and put that in the tiny world. Whee, that is so cute. Okay. All right, now let's try to do that here. Okay, moth is still moving, probably. Let's just say it is ready to fly away anytime now. So I am just going to lay in that dark red right here. And then let's just grab some of that black. Dot, 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 dot. And then how wet your watercolor is, that also determines how much your water will spread. Because remember, the pigments are like fishes. They travel to where the water is. So there we go. That is a moth. Whew. The moth flew away, for example, but good thing that I was able to capture it. All right, I notice. Anyone? I notice. Which reminds me of. So I notice that it has a pattern for the dots. Okay. I wonder. Any suggestions for the I wonder?
I wonder why it looks like a ladybug.
Good question. I wonder why it looks like a ladybug. And that's actually a good question. Why? Because in science, you have this concept of convergent evolution, the type of evolution that where different kinds of species, which are not related to one another, would tend to look alike in terms of physical shape or form, rather, because the environment allowed them to do so. So there are certain concepts in science that you can relate, and you notice how nature journaling paves the way for you to ask and introduce those questions. So really interesting question. Very good. It reminds me of, well, a ladybug. um, anything else? Maybe you guys would like to suggest?
It reminds me of watermelon.
Wow, I like that. Watermelon, it is fun. Really funky. Watermelon. I was gonna say something, I forgot.
It reminds me of a heart.
Heart, very good. There we go. I was gonna say that. It reminds me of a heart. And yeah, it does look like a watermelon. You guys are giving food as examples. Are you guys hungry already? We're gonna be done soon, like real soon, I promise. Yay. So we've got like 2 examples of those, and I hope you did that for your ephemeras as well. Now, let's see. For the next few minutes, I would like others to just take a rest, and then I'll just showcase some of the ways that I delve into my nature journal and what are my references. So for my references, just simple pictures, and also books. So books like this from, again, this is from the National Museum of the Philippines. Sorry about that. And then books that provide you a lot of pictures and facts. And I know that for most of you guys are into the Charlotte Mason kind of method. So what it does is it encourages you the use of books, especially for homeschooled kids. So these are really good reference books. So like mushrooms in this case. So you can definitely use those. So what this does, especially during the pandemic, it was a very dark, I guess, and challenging experience for most of us, but that is when you kind of like dig into the things that you have at home. So yeah, references, and then also online references. So websites, your country probably has a lot of references when it comes to plant identification, Kew botanical gardens, lepidopterans for butterflies and moths. So I will show you other things that I do as practice for nature journal. So okay. Really interesting spread. I would like to give a heads up that I am much of a perfectionist kind of person, and that is the reason why I sometimes make my page look pretty. As they say, for the gram. You want to present, I wanted to always present myself in such a kind of like organized manner, even if it's a mess. So that is my characteristics and characteristic as an artist, and it shows. So if you are not that kind of perfectionist person, that is okay. And that definitely shows. And that is, I'm just saying this because that is the reason why I have, these things in order. So let me tell you a little story about this. This is really just an interesting thing for me. The butterfly pea. It's a kind of flower that we use here in the Philippines. We eat it. You can eat that. And oh, let me know if you also have know about this butterfly pea flower in your country. Just type in yes, or have any idea about this. Okay, so the butterfly pea, it's very used as a decoration for food, for salads, and you can also make it as a tea. So when you make it as a tea and you put warm water into it or hot water into it, it makes the water blue. Sometimes it's a dark shade of blue. And I learned from the internet, they are great for morning tea. Yes. Awesome. what it does is I learned from the internet that if you add an acid to it, it turns into it changes its color. And then if you add other things, maybe it will add to other colors as well. So I was wondering if I experiment this with, mix it with other herbs I find in the kitchen, then it might change its color. So this is the butterfly pea with water. So I created a mix out of it. So this is what it looks like. It's a blue shade. It's like a pretty teal shade, right? And then I added water and also lemon, which is the acid. And it has this sort of purple, but more pink in the actual mixture. So this is what it looks like when it dried, but when it was still fresh, it actually looks like a pink color. And then when I mixed ginger to it, it's more of a cool blue, like a cerulean blue. So really interesting. Like imagine that. And I know all of these looks blue now, but before it was like a pink and a cool blue and just a regular kind of blue. And yeah, those kinds of things, it made me think, and I spread a whole lot of time just doing those mixes and doing this spread. So as simple as that, you're able to create some sort of, questions in your mind already. Okay. This was the spread earlier. This is again very technical. I spent 2 hours at most in doing these. So if you don't have time to do this, that's fine, but I'm just going to share it with you how this resonates with me. I was intrigued by this avocado plant, which grew so much, and I forgot about it. And then I realized that it's there just because it was so long, growing so long already. So you can do that, and you can arrange it in a shape that it stretches across the spread, and I did a different sections. And now my background in biology helped me, analyze different angles to it. This is also a lanzones. And I also drew the fruit inside, how it looks like. So this is kind of like the seed, and you eat this. This is super sweet, so good. You can also do that. So banana, and then you eat it, and then you draw the process. And this is a leaf that I did as well. So just copying it and making me curious about things. Bear with me, I am gonna grab some things as well. So why nature journal? This is my notes from a lesson on how to be a nature journal educator. Why nature journal? So this can be a personal experience for you. And I like how John Muir Laws said, love is attention. Yeah. When you love someone, you pay attention to it. If you love something, you pay attention to it. If you love learning, you pay attention. So this is how to do the nature journal. Again, pictures, words, and numbers. And then this is what I was talking about, going bananas. Let me zoom in. It can be as simple as a banana. I had these bananas, or we had this bananas in a tray, and it was starting to rot, so I decided to eat it, but in a beautiful way, because I started doing this started with a whole banana. I took a bite, painted that. I took another bite, painted that, until it was, gone. So as simple as a process as that, it makes you curious. This one is a view of the banana on the side. And then I noticed that it was different from another banana type. It was more of a triangular shape than it was a square. So I wonder if that was a different kind of species of bananas. So you can do something similar. This is a fun activity that we did, by the way. So yeah. And then on a more recent one, I'm sorry, I keep bumping into those things. Okay, on a more recent aspect, there we go. I attended a youth camp, and one of the ways that my brain works is to just visualize things. We did this activity where we did a nature walk, and this is where I collected this. Here we go, the seed. It's super curly. It was intriguing for me because it's super curly. And one of the prompts is to pick up something, an ephemera from the outside, and make a story out of it. So you can also do the same. Maybe you are prompted to make a poem out of it, you know? So maybe this reminds you of a barbecue. Okay. And yeah. And I've also collected some ephemeras from the outside. These are a lot of seeds. This is a mahogany seed that I destroyed for the sake of curiosity. You can also do the same. These are native seeds, seeds of the native tree here. This was once a beautiful flower, but it's gone. So yeah, you can also keep those. And then what else? There one. Tree walks. I like joining tree walks. I like conducting tree walks, but I also like joining them. And this is as simple as this. You can do a nature journal. So I just write notes about the plant and then what the facilitator is telling about the plant. And then I saw this leaf that has these like cut shapes into it. I was like, I wonder what insect made this pattern on the leaf. Because sometimes, you know, that kind of pattern on the leaf determines what species of insect that made that pattern. Really interesting. Nature's full of questions. Bagras or the Eucalyptus teglupta. So there's kinds of things. And yeah, something as easy as that. Now, you may have seen that my journal is filled with more of the on the terrestrial side of things, and that is because urban green spaces are more accessible to me than, say, the coastal ecosystem or the beach ecosystem or the mangrove ecosystem. You might be familiar with other ecosystem or more closer to other types of environment, and that might resonate with you more. Even if you're, say, for example, living in a desert, there's still a lot more to learn about it. So I am going to zoom out again and remove my spotlight. Okay. So after doing all of these things, I want to ask a question. Why do you think is it important to do a nature journal? So feel free to unmute or type your answers, but if you want to unmute, raise your hand first. Okay. Do you see yourself doing this, the nature journal? And if you do, why do you think is it important? Okay, I see someone raising their hand. Please go ahead and unmute.
To create more memories.
I think the reason why we should nature journal, it's because the more you draw something and the more you do it, the more it stays with you.
I like that. That's beautiful. Thank you. How about the others? I like that, memory making. If you're into journaling, this might be something that is more of your field and you might be familiar with. Okay, someone's unmuted. Go ahead, please. Okay, nobody? Okay. I like that you mentioned the more that you draw it, the more that it stays with you. And the reason why I got inspired to do sketchbooking is because of Leonardo da Vinci. You know how when you look up his sketchbooks on the internet, it's just a complex ideas and, you know, technical drawings that are dumped into his sketchbook. It's something that I got inspired with because he mentioned that the more that you draw something, the more that you can observe it and you notice the details. It's actually more known nowadays as the art of noticing, but Leonardo da Vinci has been doing it for a long time. He'll just sit in a park, he'll draw what he sees, and it's kind of it encapsulates the essence of nature journaling. But of course, he has been gifted with a skill because he's been doing it for a lot of time. And so I believe that if you also spend a lot of time with nature and doing this nature journaling, you can hone a lot of skills. You can ask a lot of questions, and you'll think of the world as such a beautiful place already. Let's just read some answers right here, okay? Bear with me. Okay. Someone says it helps you be more aware of the things around you, your surroundings. It is also therapeutic. Very good. Thank you so much, Iris. The last time I did nature journal was during pandemic. Yep. From simple leaf and flower structures we grew in the balcony. It also helps me become more organized with my thoughts and feelings. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much. Nature journaling also allows you to slow down, appreciate more, and just be grateful. I feel like I know who typed this, but it's labeled as participant. I'm so sorry about that again. Nature journaling helps me be more mindful and to help me distress. Thank you so much. All right. Those are beautiful answers. And I think, sorry, bear with me. Yeah, I think that encapsulates the essence of nature journaling. It slows you down, it gives you more time, but it also sparks your curiosity. It makes your brain think. You know how sometimes when you become introduced to the world of nature journaling, when you walk down a path of trees, you just don't walk past absent-mindedly. You tend to just notice a lot of things all of a sudden. And as an artist, personally, you don't need to be an artist to be a nature journaler, but as an artist, I see the world not as a complex set of, trees and all of that. Sometimes I see it as colors, lines, and shapes, and I want everybody to be able to see the world as a whole artwork as well, as a whole canvas, so that you will be able to translate it into your own sketchbook too. To be able to express your feelings, yes, appreciate your own talent, it creates memories. Awesome. Okay. All right. So before we end and share, I'll be sharing a couple more tips, but before we do so, I would like to request everyone to this is really interesting. I would like to request everyone to turn on their cameras, or you don't necessarily need to show your face, but at least what you have accomplished today. And I'll give you 5 minutes for that. We're going to do it, our kids in Mwanza, Tanzania. Yes, please. That is beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. Oh wow, that is gorgeous. Oh, you drew the same kind of leaf. Oh, this is the tree. Is that a tree or a leaf? I'm sorry, you will be taking pictures. Yes, okay. How about the others? Wow. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's a beautiful kind of leaf. Really interesting. Oh wow. Okay. Did you guys place numbers? Because I personally think of it as my Waterloo, and my brain just shuts down when I see numbers, but I'm curious if you feel like numbers is your strength. What kind of numbers did you place here? Wow, really interesting works. Oh my lord. How about the others? Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, you guys have you should be teaching me. You should be teaching me. Really, these are beautiful works. And I say beautiful because you have taken down a lot of notes and also, just made this whole study out of it. Hey, mentioned, or Miss Chelsea mentioned, we will be taking pictures. So I'll just, if you can just show your works for a while, and I'll be flashing that on my end too. Just your works. If you're not comfortable with showing your face, that is fine. So just show your works first, and then, yeah, we can take a picture. So maybe Miss Chelsea, let us know if you're ready.
Okay, I'll be counting in 3. 1, 2, 3. There. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3, and snap. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Chelsea. Are those leaves as well? You guys also painted those beautiful. What is that? I cannot see because of the blurry background. Awesome. Okay. Those are beautiful. Beautiful, by the way. All right. Final, I guess I wasn't able to show this with you, but you can also do this trick when, observing. So let me just, I forgot about it. Let me just spotlight that again. Okay. So whenever you're seeing a leaf, you notice how sometimes the leaves are curved in a certain way. I had this acetate paper and then I drew a marker on it. Try to bend the leaf in a certain manner. And then how you see those lines is how you draw it. See that? And then sometimes it bends like this. So you try to draw it that way. So that helps you envision things. This is what I meant when I said you see lines instead of shapes or the leaf itself. So I forgot to mention that, but this is just an example for a leaf. You can use like an acetate. And you can also visit John Muir Laws on Instagram or the Wild Wonder Foundation, because they most of the concepts that I am teaching here are actually not from my own. Ideas are these ideas are not from me alone. These are actually from groups of artists and educators from all across the globe that you can be inspired as well. Similarly, if you want to share your works, make sure to tag us. For those in the Philippines, we also have a Philippine Nature Journal Club that you can join. So we have, they have activities as well that you can join. We have meetups and we'll be expecting more in the future. So yeah, tag us, SchoolNet for organizing this. Wild Wonder Foundation, if you're curious to want to learn more about nature journaling. My Instagram, Dear to Our Hearts, if you want to, oops, sorry about that. If you want to, what happened there? Okay, if you want to tag me, or you can also just message me on Instagram if you want to ask for feedback and what are your thoughts about it. So that pretty much encapsulates what we did today. And I hope you did get inspired to start your own nature journaling. And somebody mentioned they're going to be starting one in Tanzania. That's beautiful. If you don't have a nature journaling club in your own country, then feel free to start one. Okay, so that is pretty much it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, ENO, for this opportunity, and Miss Chelsea. We hope you enjoyed. And I'm gonna hand the floor to Miss Chelsea for any closing remarks that she may need to do so.
Okay, thank you everyone for your participation. We truly appreciate it. So just to reiterate what Miss Kathleen said, please stay in touch with us by following ENO Philippines Luzon on Facebook and also her socials, Dear to Our Hearts. As